Good morning and welcome. I'm Bob Ross, Board Chairman of the Oklahoma City National Memorial and Museum. Thank you for joining us today as we gather for a conversation about what it would take for respect to occur among others with opposing views. Our Better Conversations, held each Tuesday, provide us the opportunity to find common ground on this sacred ground. I want to welcome Austin Manger, State Manager of Community Relations at Oklahoma Natural Gas, and one of our Memorial Foundation Board of Trustees. Austin?
Thank you, Bob. I'm looking forward to a great conversation with our panelists. Our Better Conversations signature program has brought to light valuable conversations over the past year and reinforces how important it is that we continue this work. Through these weekly Better Conversations, we have learned that we can have a difference of opinion while also recognizing that we have much in common. In fact, a difference of opinion allows us to find common ground through conversation. We would like to thank the Sarah and Kyle Sweet family for sponsoring today's program. We're also grateful for those joining us today as part of our virtual audience. I'm pleased to share that we have 10 classes from Carl Albert Middle School in Midwest City participating in our conversation today. Shout out to the Titans.
Absolutely. Thank you all for all tuning in. Today's Better Conversations is an excellent example of bringing together friends who will share experiences about today's topic of gaining a deeper understanding and respect for various opinions and ideas. I'll turn it back over to Austin to share some inside perspective on today's panelists.
Thanks, Bob. I appreciate the opportunity to introduce today's panelists. I'm not going to bore you with their stat lines or what they've accomplished in their sports. Chances are, if you're here, you're very much aware of who they are as athletes. What I'm most proud of is who they have both become as men. Both are seen as leaders in their field, not just for who they are as athletes, but for the unique insight and perspective that they bring to our world's complex issues. I know you're going to enjoy hearing from them today. Here in the studio is professional golfer on the Pga Tour, Talor Gooch, and joining us remotely via Zoom, professional baseball player for the Philadelphia Phillies, JT Realmuto. Today's conversation is centered around finding respect with others who have opposing views. If you have questions for our panel today, please type them in the chat box, and we will leave time at the end of the program to answer your questions. To kick things off, I'd like to ask each of you to comment about how diversity influences your sport. And JT, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, diversity is definitely a huge part of baseball. I mean, I've got teammates from just about everywhere in the world. You know, I've had teammates from Japan, the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, Cuba, all over the world, and obviously everywhere here in this country. You know, we've got people from every different type of background. You know, people who grew up, you know, very wealthy, people who grew up with next to nothing. So diversity is a huge part of baseball, and it's obviously extremely important that we come together in the clubhouse, and you know, when we step on that field together, where you came from doesn't matter anymore, right? You know, we're all one team, and we band together, and your opinions or what you think off the field means absolutely nothing. And it's kind of cool to see so many different personalities and so many different backgrounds come together and compete on the field together.
Talor, how does the profession of golf strengthen a culture of diversity?
You know, obviously golf historically has not been correlated with diversity. I think currently and moving forward, the PGA Tour is making it a absolute priority to grow the game for everyone, around the world, around the country, from all different, backgrounds, ethnicities, just in any way possible to grow the game. So I'm excited to see how the PGA Tour is able to lead that front for the game of golf to kind of, to grow to diversity.
Yeah, and Talor, we were talking last night, and people might not realize that the PGA Tour is a nonprofit. And as the tour travels around the country, they really impact the local communities by what they are able to give to those communities. In many cases, it's the diverse populations that really benefit from the PGA Tour traveling to their home. Share a little bit about that. I don't think people realize how philanthropic the tour is.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me extremely proud to be a part of the Pga Tour because of the giving. I mean, like you said, it's a nonprofit. It is the inception of the Pga Tour was to give back, to go into these communities and to, financially give back, to help, these struggling places, grow. And, over the last year, obviously this country has seen a lot of issues arise, and, there's different sports that have taken their stands and, have decided to, not play a game, to take a day off in recognition of some of these issues that have been ongoing. And, I think it's been cool, as a Pga Tour player, the way that we've taken a stand is we continue to play, because whenever we go into a community, the impact that we have is, I mean, it's massive. I mean, not only financially, but just helping to bring recognition to some struggling communities. And I think, our platform is maybe not as big as obviously the NFL or the NBA or Major League Baseball, but we're still able to make, a significant impact. And our impact is whenever we go into these communities and, are helping every week.
A good answer. And I know, both Taylor, you and JT. JT, you have 2 little girls, and Taylor, you have a little girl on the way. So I'm sure your perspective about diversity, JT, I'm sure yours has changed much, and Taylor, yours is going to. Talk us through,
Sure.
That. How do you guys cope with what you see in 10 years and what your little girls are going to face, and what's your plan for keeping them along that road, and what are your thoughts?
JT?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's been actually pretty cool. In Major League Baseball, women are getting a lot more recognition, and they're getting a lot more job opportunities. When I first got to the big leagues, there was not one woman, in the whole clubhouse. There weren't any jobs available for them. Now we have a nutritionist. Our mental strength coaches, both of them are women. A couple teams have women actually on field, in the dugout with uniforms on, which is really cool to see that diversity growing in the sport, because 10 years ago, that was unheard of or unthinkable. So there's also the first woman GM was hired by the Marlins this last offseason, which is really cool to see. So who knows, how far that can go in the next 10 to 15 years, when our girls are older and looking for jobs in that situation. So it's just exciting to see our sport growing and really the country growing in that direction.
Taylor, what about you?
It's really cool to see the growth in the LPGA. Girls like Michelle Wee West and the Corda sisters and these girls here in the United States that are growing the game of golf for women internationally. I just think there's such a bigger viewership and such a more of a recognition of the quality of athletes that these women are, and the performance that they bring. I mean, I know they can whip a lot of dudes' butts in golf, and I think the world is starting to recognize, what, these aren't just girls, these are athletes, and it's pretty neat.
It's awesome.
Oh, I want to bring it home a little. I mean, you 3 have known each other since around 7th grade, Midwest City families. I mean, how cool is that you all came together at an early age, and now here we are together on this stage. But I wanted to talk a little bit about, and have you all talk just about respecting people you're competing against, even though you're trying to defeat someone on the other side. Talk to us about competition, and then how you respect one another. And if you could, start with your all's families. Is this something that your mom or dad taught you? Is this something that started from the very beginning? I know Taylor, your dad was a professional baseball player. What type of lessons has he taught you over the years? What type of person did he want to make sure you grew into?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing that's so cool and unique about sports is all of the life skills that it's going to teach you. In now my game, golf, we're trying to beat each other every day, right? It's different and unique from other team sports because it's an individual sport. But one of the biggest kind of fundamentals of golf is upholding the integrity of the game. And so as much as we're trying to go out and beat each other every day, every week. There's a mutual respect that we all have because, you know, we recognize, you know what, this game is bigger than us. And regardless of how much I want to beat you, at the end of the day, I'm still going to treat you just like I would treat anybody else. And so, you know, there's not a lack of competitiveness when you also respect someone at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can both try to beat someone while respecting them at the same time.
JT, any thoughts on that, and any perspective on growing up and kind of lessons learned? Because you know, I'm sure like everyone, when you're young, you do things maybe you wish you had done different. So what have you learned?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, my dad was always really big into how I acted on the field, right? He didn't care after the game whether I got any hits or whether I made errors or not. He was more interested in whether I was out there pouting or showing up my teammates or showing up my, you know, the other team. It was more about attitude and the perception I was giving off more than my actual performance, which was really important for me growing up, because now being in the big leagues, I see why it was that way, right? There's this constant battle going on right now about internally in Major League Baseball about whether we want to let guys celebrate more and, you know, pimp home runs or let pitchers scream at the batters when they strike somebody out. And it's just, for me, there's a very fine line, you know, respecting the other team. Obviously you're competing, you want to beat those guys, but you also want to have fun and enjoy your teammates. So I think there's a fine line with in regard to celebrating and enjoying success with your teammates is very important. But then when you bring all the attention to yourself and then it becomes super prideful and kind of arrogant, that's kind of when you step across the line. So in my opinion, as long as you're celebrating with your team and enjoying that process with them, everything's cool. It's, you know, once you start showing up the other team and disrespecting them, that's when it becomes a problem.
That's great, and good for all these students to hear. I love seeing all the students on the Zoom screen.
That's awesome. Yeah. So with any sport, there are various audiences. We have the teams, the individuals who are competing, the fans who enjoy attending the sporting event, and the online audience who might be watching from home. Share with us your perspective on how your sport has responded to such a diverse fan experience. Taylor, let's start with you.
Yeah, I mean, so growing up, obviously I grew up in Tiger Woods was the man, right? But you look at, you know, some of the older footage of the Jack Nicklaus days and Arnold Palmer days, and you just see the audience and the crowds then versus now what I see on a weekly basis. It just shows the immense growth of the game for everyone. It's not just the old white man sport, country club sport anymore, you know. You have fans from all different backgrounds, all different ethnicities, and it's cool as, you know, someone growing up from Midwest City that didn't grow up on a country club, like in that kind of field of wealth, if you will, to see a game that I feel is progressing and kind of moving away from the stigma that has kind of been around for so long. So it's really cool to see the fan base growing to different, you know, in different ways to different people.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, we talk about how each player on the tour really brings something special to what the tour is. And I know you guys recently implemented a players advisory council.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's something where players from all over the tour have their voice heard. So talk a little bit about that. I know, you know, one of your good buddies, Harold Varner, is on that council, and you know, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, similar to what JT was saying, you know, the players on the PGA Tour are from all walks of life, from all around the world, and so the PGA Tour does a great job in making sure that all these different voices are being heard. And so they've created this player advisory council, and you have, you know, guys from America, guys from Australia, guys from South Africa. I mean, people from all around the world that have different perspectives and different thoughts on things that come from a different walk of life, giving their thoughts of how we're going to progress the game forward, how we're going to, you know, grow the game, plain and simple. And so it's neat. Again, I'm just so proud to be on the PGA Tour, and it's neat that we make sure that we're trying to include everyone in this whole process.
Yeah, and JT, you guys travel all over the country and play lots of different cities. Talk to us about your fan experience. You're dealing with the diversity of the people you're interacting with. How does Major League Baseball curate that experience to make sure it's inclusive to everybody?
Yeah, we have a couple programs in place that I think do a pretty good job of including everybody. We have the RBI programs, which is for inner city kids, that aren't as fortunate as others. As you guys know, baseball is a pretty expensive sport to get into. You're constantly needing new equipment and needing fields to play on. And Major League Baseball does a good job for the kids that can't afford that. They go in and pay for everything and put these leagues together and just try to get a more diverse group into the game. When you get kids into it young like that and give them an opportunity early, you never know what can happen and what kids can blossom and change your sport forever. So we also have the Players Alliance, which has been a really cool thing that started the last couple of years, where guys just get together in caravans and literally just travel around cities in the off season and pass out equipment, pass out bats, pass out gloves, and really just trying to grow the sport in that way, get more kids involved in it, because we have a lot of, it's an older sport. So we have a lot of older fans, people that have loved baseball forever. It's the younger generation that we're really trying to connect with more and trying to get them more involved in baseball, because there's so many sports now that kids are excited about, and we just want to keep a good amount of it excited in baseball and keep that amount diverse and try to get a lot of different people involved.
Yeah, I mean, both of you have talked about just the growth in your sports. Kind of this new phenomena that we are all facing in all walks of life is the age of social media. So we've mentioned the online fan. Talk about the importance of showing respect on social media and share any personal experience that you've learned about social media and respect.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of keyboard warriors out there, right? It's social media is kind of heading in a bad direction, in my opinion. So it's important for people to know that what you say might not necessarily have consequences to you, what you're typing on that computer, but it has consequences to other people. Being a professional athlete, I try to stay off of social media as much as I can. I have to have it for a few reasons, but I'm not really as active on there as a lot of athletes for a lot of reasons. One of those reasons being, there's a lot of hate out there right now, especially on social media, because people think that, they can send you a message and, there's no consequences or repercussions from it. But there's always somebody on the other end reading those messages. And I don't think that people always think about that before they send it. So there's definitely social media has kind of taken a hit for me in the last few years.
Taylor, what about you? I know you have some great interactions with fans on Twitter. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, it's on the front page of the paper today. Actually, if you look at the Oklahoman, a great, really neat story about how you handle issues on social media.
Yeah, like JT said, I mean, I call them keyboard cowards. There's a lot of keyboard cowards out there that's like to just spew hate. And it's unfortunate because I think it's an area where we as professional sports could have such great interaction with the fan base. But unfortunately, because of like what JT just talked about, there's a lot more hate that you encounter than love. And that just makes us want to kind of stay away from it, right? And it kind of comes back to this whole conversation of like, man, just because JT went 0 for 3 with a strikeout, like, why do you have to like go at him about that? Like
make it personal,
right? Yeah. I mean, and there's better conversations like this whole thing is about. I don't know. I think we're missing as a society an opportunity to really engage with, for some of these people, they're heroes, right? But unfortunately, people don't communicate extremely well at times, and they feel like they want to spew out hate, and it's really easy for them to type it. And I just think there's a lack of accountability. Like JT says, just because you type something, you don't immediately there's no repercussions immediately. The person on the other end is the one receiving what is, unfortunately more times than not, hate. And it just doesn't foster like relationships. It doesn't make the athlete want to engage with the fans, which at the end of the day, we don't get to play a sport for a living without the fans. So as much as we would like to love the fans and engage, unfortunately at times social media, it doesn't foster that relationship.
Well, so what caused you to flip it on its head? I mean, this guy on social media was riding you for missing some putts, but you wanted to turn it more positive, be more kind about it. I mean, was that what led to that?
So, it's so easy to, whenever people get at you, to try, your almost response is to try to get back at
Be
them,
mean
right?
or come back.
You tend to be very defensive.
Defensive.
And so so often you see that interaction where, professional athletes are getting very defensive, and I'm like, why don't we flip this and why don't I kill them with kindness?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of been my take on social media for a while now is, dude, you can send all the hate you want. I'm just going to continue taking it, continue to try to kill you with kindness.
Yeah.
I don't know. It goes back to, I guess, like you said, how we were raised. I'm super fortunate to have parents that, like JT said, my parents cared more about how I treated people, in tournaments rather than how I performed.
Right.
And like JT said, especially now that I have a little one coming, I recognize and I see at the highest level of my game, how important it really is.
That's awesome. JT, kind of a hard topic, cancel culture. So this has become very polarizing. You can almost barely say the words without causing a social media storm. But let's talk a little bit about that. And maybe it's the question is, why do we always feel the need to be right, and where did this feeling originate? Talk a little bit about this topic of the day.
Yeah, I mean, cancel culture is a big problem right now here. I think that it's a very, very small percentage of the population, that has, for whatever reason, they have really loud voices on social media, and they go around, causing havoc really for people that they've made mistakes in the past. They've said something that they probably regret saying, or they've even apologized for saying already. And for whatever reason, cancel culture just doesn't believe in showing grace and forgiving people for their mistakes. And they have this idea of purity, that none of us should have ever made a mistake, which is just not the case for any of us. So I think the feeling of always having to be right is something that stems. It's a deep problem in this country that people don't have the ability to just admit when they're wrong. And, to have a good conversation and one that actually leads to growth, you have to be able to admit when you're wrong. And I've been wrong a million times in my life and haven't always admitted it, right? And those are the conversations that don't end well. So in my opinion, being able to admit when you're wrong and know that you have flaws is extremely important. But the cancel culture thing is definitely something that I think needs to change.
Taylor, any thoughts on that, and how does someone redeem themselves, I guess?
Yeah, and I think that's the missing topic of the whole cancel culture is, there's no grace. There's no recognition of, let's see how this person responds when they make a mistake. I mean, I think one of the great life lessons that golf teaches you is it's all about how you respond to adversity. When you make a bogey, when you have a bad day, that's not going to define who you are, just as I don't think a mistake that you make in life should define who you are. And unfortunately, cancel culture is starting to make that thing where you make a mistake and that defines who you are. Obviously people make mistakes all the time, and I'm not saying they just instantly need to be forgiven, but they should have a chance to prove hold on a second, this is not who I am. And I'm going to learn and I'm going to grow. And like you said, I'm going to redeem myself from this and grow from this.
Yeah.
Taylor, one of your peers, Justin Thomas, recently came under some fire for something that he uttered under his breath with a hot mic, something that he regretted immediately. And there was a segment of our culture that wanted to cancel him. And he lost some sponsors, and he took a hit there. Talk to us a little bit about that. I know you know him personally, so you might have a different perspective.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the guys that I know firsthand has dealt with this cancel culture, and you know, it's so unfortunate because obviously he made a mistake and he recognized it immediately and immediately regretted it. Knowing him personally, I know that's not who he is. I mean, it was in the heat of the moment, and he just made a mistake, and he, from a lot of people, didn't get the chance to redeem himself, didn't get any grace. Immediately, he was blackballed by everybody, or not everybody, but a lot of people. And it's so unfortunate because if we were all judged by our worst moments, not many people would like each other in this world. You know, we're humans, we're innately flawed, and we're going to make mistakes. And I just really wish and I hope we've gotten so far in leading down this direction that eventually that's going to, people from the other side are going to be like, all right, let's like level this out a little bit. You know, this has gotten too crazy. It's gotten, you know, we're responding too quickly. At the end of the day, we just need to show some more grace.
Right, and there's that accountability, that initial accountability that the cancel culture brings. But what's also neat about accountability is being able to see a change at the end. And so, like both of you have talked about, that the idea of redemption on the other side is what could be missing in some instances. I'd like for both of you to think about these three words: confrontation, conversation, and collaboration. How can these three words work together to reach unity? Taylor, this kind of ties into what we just talked about with cancel culture. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, those can all three work together. You can have confrontation, but that doesn't mean because we have a confrontation about something that immediately we're enemies. Like, we can have a confrontation, but have a conversation about it, and we may not agree on something, but I'm not going to immediately just shut you off because I don't agree with you. And that kind of comes to the cancel culture we were just talking about. You know, it's like if there's a disagreement on something, immediately it's like people shut off, and it's like, nope, you're wrong. It's like, man, if that's how we as a society would have been working forever, we wouldn't have gotten to the place that we are at right now. You know, for example, at Augusta National at the Masters this year, you know, Lee Elder was one of the honorary starters. You know, one of the first African Americans in golf at the professional level. You know, this was at a club country club that didn't have women allowed for the longest of times. Didn't have people of color for the longest of times. And to think about the growth from 50 years ago to where Lee Elder was the first African American, I think maybe to play at Augusta, to now at a club where they didn't allow African Americans, to now he's a starter. Like, you know, they absolutely applaud him. It's just, I don't know, that's an example in my mind of like confrontation, different ideals, but through time and conversation and understanding, you know what, we can grow and we can learn from this and we can, you know, be better from this. That's where I think of confrontation and being able to have a conversation can foster some growth.
Yeah, so JT, confrontation, conversation, collaboration. Talk to us about those words.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you have all those three things together, that's when you're going to have your better conversations, right? That's when you're going to have the most productive conversations and actually come out with something in the end. If you just have the confrontation by itself, you don't really go anywhere, right? You know, you disagree with somebody, and that's the end of it. That's kind of where this country is at more than it should be, right? If you have opposing views from somebody else, people don't like to talk about them and they don't like to work through them and find a solution, you know. But if you have a confrontation and then you just sit down and have a conversation with somebody, you're going to go a lot further, right? That's where the collaboration comes in. That's where you start to come up with ideas to better your society, whether it be in the clubhouse, right? Whether it be in politics, no matter where it's at in this world. Without those conversations with people that you have opposing views with, you're not going to grow as a person. You're not going to grow as a society. And so those three things together are what are going to make us more productive as a country, and what can really fix a lot of the issues that we have.
Good answer.
Great. Well, the time is now to go to our Zoom board here, and I've also got some questions flowing in from online. First up, since you guys have been friends since 7th grade, I decided, personal privilege here, to call on my best friend, Brian Beasley, who's a filmmaker out in Los Angeles, and we've been best friends since kindergarten. Brian, thanks for joining us today and zooming in from Los Angeles. You're up.
Hi, guys. Yeah, just concerning social media, tech venture capitalist Gary Vaynerchuk said, Facebook is a mirror. Everyone's super pumped about blaming other people for their own issues. Technology is just exposing who they are, not changing you. I want to know what the panel's thoughts on social media reflecting who we really are.
Wow.
So I'll answer that. One of my good buddies out on Pga Tour, his name is Max Homa, and he has a cult following on Twitter and social media. And it's funny because, when you meet him and then when you see his Twitter, it's almost like they're not different people, but it's almost like an alter ego where he can kind of let his imagination and let his more humorous side out. It's almost like an outlet. So I don't necessarily know if I agree with it's a reflection of who we are. It might be like my buddy Max, it's an outlet for him to be, a version of himself. I sure hope that social media is not a reflection of who I am in a lot of ways at times. But that's interesting. I haven't heard that. I don't necessarily disagree with it, but I can see where he's coming from. I guess there's maybe some gray area there, but that's interesting.
Where it's kind of a snapshot of the best, right? So people don't post when they're sad on Instagram, or they don't post their bad day, their bad hair day. It's always a picture of them at their best, and I think that has created this, this insecurity amongst our emerging culture. Our students on the Zoom today. I mean, everybody has this picture of what they might have to live up to, based on what they're seeing on social media. And, kind of circling back to our conversation today, how does that lead to diversity of thought if we're wanting to be like something that we see on social media instead of showing who we really are? So I think that's an interesting point.
It is.
If anyone has questions on our Zoom panel, you can raise your hand in your screen and I'll be able to see it. I know our good friend Fred Hall's here, and I think he just wanted to say a quick word. Fred, are you unmuted?
Hello there. Thanks, Bob. I appreciate that. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
I hear you.
Okay, great. Hello, gentlemen. Three great examples of young men who have done discipline and used their strength and to get to their careers, what they've done, and they're great examples for Oklahoma City. And growing up, I had the Johnny Benches of the world, and now I've got you all, and you all have done so well, and we're so proud of you. So hello from Florida beaches, and on vacation, had to jump in and say hello to all of you for this great round that you're doing for everybody. Thanks.
Good to see you, Fred.
That's
see
great.
you, Fred.
Thanks, Fred. Let's see here. JT, I'll go with you. We've got one. I'll read one that's coming in online, then we'll go back to the Zoom. Here's a question from Kathy Dunn. I would love to hear how you guys respond to criticism or being dinged with the pitch or hearing annoying chatter from fans or opponents. So, annoying fans or opponents screaming and yelling. How do you deal with that and internalize that? JT?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely get a lot of that in baseball. So for me, I really just try basically to turn the other cheek. I'm pretty confident in who I am as a person, and that helps me deal with those situations a lot, right? Like I know that the fan heckling me doesn't know me personally. They're a fan of the Braves, or they're a fan of the Nationals. They're just there to have fun and have a good time. They paid money for these seats. This is their night off. They're sometimes they're sauced up a little bit, had a few too many drinks, they're just having a good time. So when that's going on, I don't take it too personally. I know that it's all in good fun. So for me, I actually kind of enjoy the fan experience when they're a little rowdy and they're giving you a little bit of extra crap on the side of what's going on in the game. So I actually kind of enjoy that aspect and just try to go along with it, really.
Any stories of crazy hecklers?
Yeah, I mean, like JT said, it's so for us in golf. Just recently, we've started to have fans back since COVID started,
Sure.
and so like he said, we know it's all in good fun, and so it's fun to have it. I mean, this last week I was in Charlotte, and there was a lot of fans out there, and it was getting a little rowdy. And yeah, if you don't do something good, they're gonna get at you. But hey, like you said, that's the competitor in you is excited at that opportunity to to either make the fans cheer for you or to kind of like, hey, prove them wrong whenever they're going against you.
There you go.
So it's fun.
I think we have a question from Debbie Johnson. Debbie, we see you waving your hand.
You need to unmute.
I just did. It took me a second. I was a little slow on the unmute. I kind of had a follow-up question in terms of not hecklers, but not so much from the perspective of fans, but from playing. I know from my own kids' experience when they were younger, and I'm hoping this has changed, but I'm curious to see if it has or not. My kids are adopted. Boys are Korean. My daughter is as well, but my boys played a lot of sports. We would go to a lot of tournaments in different states and everything else when they were younger, and in high school they played pretty well. Mm-hmm. And regularly they would be taunted, and I would always be appalled, and they would always be much better than I was and say, that's just part of the sport. Is that still part of the sport? In this age of diversity, is racial taunting still going on? Is the kind of thing still going on that I had to put up with when my children were younger?
You go ahead, JT.
JT?
Yeah, I really hope not. I hope that's not still going on. I think that's the exact type of issue that we're trying to get away from in our sport, and that begins at home. That's the parents' job to make sure their kids know that that's not right, and to make sure that their kids know that no matter what their teammates look like, or even that goes back to respecting the other team. No matter what background the kids on the field come from, we're all there to play baseball and have fun, or whatever sport it is. There should be no place for racial taunting in any atmosphere, much less kids having fun just trying to play a sport. So I hope that the game is progressing and parents are doing a better job of teaching their children that that's just not right.
Yeah, and I haven't seen any of that in my sport, whether I was 10 years old, 15 years old, college, professionally. Fortunately, I haven't seen any of that, which is obviously a good thing. But like JT said, that all starts at home, and you just got to hope that these kids are being taught, from within that, that there's no room in any game for that, in any part of life for that. So hopefully there has been progress in that area.
We can see the Carl Albert classrooms. It's hard to tell if anyone has a question, but it'd be great to have a question from one of our classrooms. I don't know if any of the teachers in there have anything to say, or there's a question.
I see somebody raising their hand right here.
And you got to unmute if you do.
There he comes.
There we go. All right.
Hi.
What's your name? What grade?
I'm Andrew Campbell from Carl Albert, of course, and I'm in 8th grade.
Nice. Great to hear from you. What do you have to say, or do you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to ask a question to Mr. JT. How has being respectful to your coaches and fellow athletes got you to where you are today?
That's a good question. I think being respectful is extremely important, not just to your teammates and the other team, but obviously your coaching staff, and being coachable is really important to growing as an athlete and growing as an individual. Respect is on the forefront of any athlete's success, right? If you don't have respect for yourself, respect for the other guys on the field, and respect for your coaching staff, then where are you really getting? And it's stems from your age right now, where you guys are at in school and where you're at in your sports. This is where you learn to respect the game and respect your elders and respect everybody for that matter. A lot of that comes from self-confidence, right? You have to be confident in what you're doing and how you're going about your business, and that makes it a lot easier to respect other people. So be confident in who you are, be confident in what you're doing, and work as hard as you can, and the respect will come easy, right? It's a learned trait. You just respect everybody. You respect whatever you're doing. You just respect going through that process, and life will definitely be a lot more fulfilling when you have that respect for others.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
You're welcome, buddy.
Good question.
Great question. Any other questions on from the classrooms? Yeah, it looks like someone's making a move here. Give us your name and your grade.
Leslie, I'm in the 8th grade. How do you calm yourself down when you're under pressure?
Oh, that's a good one for a golfer, huh?
Great question.
How do you get calm?
Kind of like JT just said. I mean,
Yeah.
I know I've been working at this my whole life. I put all the work in, and I know that my performance is not going to define who I am. And when I know that whether I win, lose, or whatever, it doesn't make a difference in who I am, and the people that view me in a different way because of my performance, those people don't matter to me. I know the people that care about me and care about what I'm doing. They care about, again, like I said, they don't care about my performance. They care about how I'm treating people. And at the end of the day, I know if I put the work in, that if I don't succeed right now under pressure in the moments, I know that I'm going to succeed at some points. And so that's able to calm me down, kind of like JT has talked about. I have the confidence in myself that, you know what, if it doesn't work out this time, next time it's going to work out. So you have to have that self-confidence and that belief in yourself and what you're doing on a daily basis. And when you put the work in and you have that belief and self-confidence, it'll calm you down in the moment for sure.
Did you get in a zone, or how does it work? Is there a time that it's harder versus other times? I mean,
I mean, this last Sunday there was, I think, like 10,000 fans on the 18th hole.
Oh yeah.
And so when you have that many people like right on top of you, screaming, yelling, and you're right there trying to perform, and you're like, well, if I hit a bad shot, they're all going to think, oh, I'm no good.
Yeah.
So you have to get beyond that. And I will say another thing that's important too is, like, one thing I didn't realize when I was your age is breathing. Like, being able to control your breathing helps you in those tense moments. It's not something I learned until I was professional, so you don't have to wait, or you don't have to do that anytime soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, controlling my breathing has been crucial for those intense moments. And again, just knowing I've put the time in, and knowing that things are going to work out, it's just that confidence helps ease your nerves in the moment.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Great answer. What?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, good question.
You want to send someone else up for a question in one of the classrooms? See if anyone moves. Yep, here comes another student. Give us your name, and I guess you're an 8th grader. Okay, we've got 2. Go for it, young man.
My name is Cohen Wagner. Like you said, I'm in 8th grade. So I was wanting to know, what do you do if someone mentioned earlier, like, annoying chatter or criticism? What do you do if that's coming from, like, your own teammates?
I guess I'll answer that one since I'm the one with teammates.
Yeah, JT, you want to handle that one? How do you deal with inner team rivalry or issues?
So you're going to have some of that, obviously, growing up, right? Not everybody thinks the same way, or people mess up and teammates get onto each other. That just happens. As long as it's done the right way and it's the right type of criticism, then you just accept it and you try to you try to become better, and you try to, whatever they're getting on to you about or whatever they think you did wrong, you try not to do it wrong next time. You try to become better and respect that they're just trying to make you a better teammate or a better person. If they're doing it in a manner that is not the right way to go about it, if they're just giving you a hard time just for the sake of giving you a hard time, and maybe it's something that they're insecure, their own insecurities are coming out, and so that they're getting onto you, that's where you have to have a conversation and sit down with that person and let them know that they're disrespecting you, and that's not okay, and that needs to be fixed. You can't have, especially on a team that's supposed to be close and tight knit, you can't have two teammates going at it constantly that are having different views, or one of them. There's times where people are just jealous of their teammates. That's going to happen when you're growing up, and you have to be able to first you need to have a conversation, and if that doesn't fix it and they continue to treat you with disrespect, then you're going to have to turn the other cheek and just basically act like they don't exist, until the situation resolves itself.
JT, when you were in middle school, did you handle things different than you do now in terms of disagreements with teammates? I mean, these kids are kind of sitting in those shoes right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really hard. I hope that the kids in middle school would recognize that, putting your teammates down, there's nothing productive about that. And it's hard at that age to see the damage you're doing to that other kid. Bullying is something that's so real in this world, and it's horrible, honestly. The kids, they don't understand what kind of damage they're doing, and you have to be able to stand up for yourself, but you have to do it the right way. It's more about having that conversation, and that's the first way to do it. And if the conversation doesn't work, maybe you get parents involved and go about it that way. But the worst thing you can do is try and go fight the kid, right? That's probably what I would have done in middle school.
All right,
it's not the best way to do it.
Don't do that, kids. But you do grow as you grow up and mature. You figure out better ways to handle those situations.
Exactly.
You learn.
Looks like we have a question from Leanne. Leanne, can you unmute?
Oh, on this.
I can.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so I'm also from Midwest City, but I'm a Bomber guy, so you're going to have to forgive me. But I just wanted to know, what influence did growing up in Midwest City have on how you've kind of progressed through your careers and dealt with folks of different backgrounds and ideologies?
Taylor, you want to start that one off?
Yeah, I mean, so JT, Austin, and I are same age, same graduating class. We all grew up together, and like I said, from my perspective, I didn't grow up a country club kid. I grew up playing different sports with different teammates from different backgrounds and different ideologies and everything. And so being exposed to that at a young age and early on was great, because it was just my normal. I didn't know any different. And fortunately, I grew up in a household that's, in a Christian household, that it's treat your neighbor as you want to be treated, and show kindness and be accepting of others, regardless of how they feel, what they believe, and just showing love and compassion. I mean, it all sounds so cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason, because it's reality. I mean, if you show respect, you show love, you show compassion for others that come from different walks of life, you may not agree or necessarily understand what they are saying or going through, but as long as you approach it with that compassion and love and understanding, you're going to be able to collaborate. You're going to be able to get on the same page as each other, and I think that's crucial for any walk of life, any age of life, any circumstance, whether it's in the workplace or it's at the Y or at the golf course, or whatever it may be. So I can speak from a stance of, I was super fortunate to be exposed to a lot of differences amongst people growing up and the people I spent time with, and I attribute it a lot to sports, playing different sports, and that was I think huge in my early understanding of just because we come from different backgrounds, different circumstances, that doesn't make, like, we're on the field, we're on the court, we're trying to do the same thing right now. And that's what's so cool about sports, is like this unity. It's like everyone can come from different places, have different understandings, different thoughts, and like JT says, all
Yeah.
that goes to the side when you step on the court, when you step on the field, and it's game time. And so, for me, I was able to grow up in this, like I said, environment that none of that mattered. All that mattered was, like I said, in my household was how did you treat these people? How did you conduct yourself, on the court?
A couple things that are coming in from online. Just a comment. This is from YouTube. This is from Coach Michael Dunn. Carl Albert, stand up. Proud of all three of you guys. Glad you're all doing well and giving back with these kind of events. That's from Coach Dunn.
Coach Dunn, new football coach at Carl Albert. We're proud of Coach Dunn.
There you go. So
Congratulations.
Isn't that awesome? Let's see here. I think we've got another student that's standing up there.
Yes, ma'am.
How do y'all deal with always being compared to other athletes?
Other athletes. JT or Taylor, which?
You or me, JT?
Go for it, JT.
Oh, I'll go first. Yeah, that's a good one. That's actually a really good question. We're constantly being compared to our peers, present and past. And I think that's where it kind of goes back to knowing your self-worth and knowing that, what you do on the field doesn't necessarily define who you are, right? If they're comparing my stats to another catcher in the league, that's all fine and that's fun for the fans to do. That's fun for the analysts to do. But for me, I couldn't really care less what that guy's doing over there. I'm more than just a baseball player. I'm a Christian first. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm trying to take care of my family, and that's the most important thing to me. So when people are comparing, they act like my entire life is what I do on that baseball field. That's for them. That's not for me. I'm very confident who I am as a person and what my real values are and what my core beliefs are. And baseball is so far down that list, it's not even funny. So that's for me the easiest way to deal with it is just knowing that that stuff is for the fans and for the analysts. That's not for me.
Yeah, I would on that as well. Like, we both play sports. It's a game of failure. Like, in golf, the greatest golfer, most winning golfer of all time, Tiger Woods, he's won something like 20% of his tournaments. That's failing a lot. And same with JT. Like, in baseball, if you hit 1 out of 3 times, you're in the Hall of Fame. So, like, we're failing a lot. And so if we let the comparisons dictate how we feel about ourselves, we're not going to feel good about ourselves a lot, because there's a lot of successful people and there's a lot of failure in our day-to-day. And so we have to have an understanding like, hey, our success does not dictate our self-worth. Like JT says, we both grew up in Christian households where it's like, you know what, we recognize our identity is elsewhere. It's not in what we do, and it's not in our performance.
We've got a couple questions that I'm going to combine into one here from online, and it's really talking about how do you all feel like you can express your own feelings, your own opinions, even your own political beliefs, even though you might understand that some of your fans might totally disagree. How do you walk that line? Or do you just stay away from it?
Unfortunately, if you have an opinion like that, you're going to get rinsed. So you just gotta walk a fine line with that, because at the end of the day, you don't want to, like, we're trying to unify people, and when you start to take a stance in some ways, it can do the opposite of unify. And so that's a fine line, because you want to feel like you can voice your opinion. Unfortunately, we're in a society where that can create animosity amongst people. And so how you go about that it's super, super important. And unfortunately, I know a lot of professional athletes just completely stay away from that, because it's like, there's more harm than good.
Nothing to be gained, and you could be misunderstood.
Correct.
JT, you're shaking your head kind of positive. Is that similar?
Yeah. I mean, I agree with everything you just said. It's just, there's such a fine line there, and it's kind of this whole conversation we're having, with the cancel culture that's out there. It's almost not worth it for athletes to put their opinions, because more harm can come from that than the good that can happen. So it's very unfortunate, but that's a reason that, most athletes are more personal about, their beliefs and what they think than they are publicly.
Looks like we've got a couple questions ready on the Zoom wall from the students. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Brooklyn Carpenter, and I was wondering, how do you feel more confident in yourself while you're playing your sport?
So does it build confidence?
Go ahead, JT.
JT?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it starts from a young age. You just have to. My parents always instilled confidence in me, and that was very important for them. Like, they made it very apparent at an early age that that's super important. So it was always easy for me. It came natural for me. But confidence is learned. Like you can instill confidence in yourself at any time in your life. So for me, it's putting in the work. It's trusting the process that I'm going to outwork whatever it is you're trying to do, whether it be sports, academics, whatever it is in life. You just have to put in the work to get that confidence in yourself that you're going to be successful when it comes time to perform. At any career that you're going for, if you don't outwork everybody else in that career, it's going to be tough to succeed. But when you're putting all that work in, you're going to have confidence in yourself, and you're going to know that you're going to be successful in what you're doing.
Taylor, yeah.
So I'll say too. So when I was, I think, in 9th grade, so my swing coach since I was a kid, his name is Steve Ball. He's from Edmond, and we worked on some middle game stuff. And one of the things that we worked on, we took this basically personality test to kind of see how I thought, how my mind worked. And on this test, one of the characteristic traits that it would judge you off of is confidence, like belief, self-confidence. And it would grade on a level of 1 to 10. And at the time, I think I was like a 6 out of 10. And we took that same test like 10 years later, like right when I graduated college, and it was like a 9 out of 10. And so my point being, like, especially in the age that you're in right now, it's incredibly difficult to have that self-confidence. But like JT said, it comes from putting the effort in, putting the time in, and it also comes from working on it. You have to continue to, tell yourself, like, your self-talk is so huge in what I do. You're going to form an opinion of yourself based on how you talk to yourself. And that's part of why I think a lot of professional athletes stay away from social media, is because there's not a lot of good that gets thrown at you, where, we have to continue to build our confidence daily by how we talk to ourselves. So I would say, it sounds silly, but like, fake it till you make it. Like, continue, even if you don't feel confident, like, continue to talk, like, have good self-talk about yourself. And that through time, like I just said, when I was in 9th grade to whenever I graduated college, my confidence built through two things mainly. Through my work, I just continued to put more and more work in as the years progressed. And also my self-talk. I continued to basically talk to myself in a good way and build my own confidence until that confidence became more natural.
Good answer.
Well, this has been just great. And Austin, thanks for bringing your friends to Better Conversations. JT and Taylor, this has been a great conversation. And just having, two homegrown Oklahomans, do incredibly well in their specific sport has just been amazing. But it's great to have you all here today to talk a little bit about this important discussion. And for the students all Zooming in, we really appreciate you taking the time to be here and to listen. And those were just fabulous questions. So thank you so much for participating, and everyone else that took the time to Zoom in. We really thank you. Through the teaching of our museum exhibits, online educational programs, ongoing discussions on this sacred ground, we are trying to find common ground. And you can join us by visiting the memorial in the museum, or taking part in one of these Better Conversation series, which we have on Tuesdays. They are scheduled every Tuesday in May, and you can join us May 18th, where we'll ask the question, if you could teach one thing to the generation before or after you, what would that be? And then on May 25th, we'll discuss if there are any rules or laws that have affected your sense of security. You can read about all of our upcoming topics and sign up for these conversations at memorialmuseum.com. And the museum is open for business, where we practice time ticketing and social distancing and encourage masks being worn. If you have not already been, please come and check out the museum. It'll be a great experience for you and your family to see the memorial in the museum. Again, thanks to everyone for joining us today, and please have an enjoyable rest of your afternoon. Thank you.